All right, guys, we are now ready for the 5 to avoid portion of the Week 6 preview here for the Fantasy Football Stock Report. These are guys, again, if you have not checked out my 5 to ride video, the format's a little different now going on because of time issues. We are just shortening it down to 5 guys each week, 1 at each of the positions, and a wild card to kind of give you guys a little bit condensed in time. Also, I'm going to post a link to my Facebook page for my notes, the same ones that I use for the report every single week, and you can find thoughts on some other players, on guys that I like and don't like there as well. But these are the guys that really kind of let us down last week. Didn't come through for us when they needed to. Maybe you have some concerns on these guys going forward. These are 5 guys that I think really you kind of maybe temper your expectations going forward on these guys, or maybe just cut them loose altogether. So these are 5 guys that we wanted to avoid last week and maybe even avoid going forward. So let's jump right in at the quarterback position. And I hate to do it. I mean, I really, really hate to do it. But once again, I have to say it. The Tennessee Titans don't have much of an offense. And they definitely don't have much of an offense when Matt Hasselbeck, ancient Matt Hasselbeck, is under center. I'm sorry. He is not an upgrade from Jake Locker. He is an absolute cliff plummet from Jake Locker. You really want Jake Locker to get healthy again soon if you're a Titans fan, because this was just a big disappointment of a day by fantasy standard. 26 of 43, only threw for 200 yards, had a touchdown, but also had a pick. That's only 13 points. That's more of a number 2, not even worth a look as a starter. I mean, it's clear he's not even close to an upgrade. But at least with Locker under center, the offense has been pointing upward of late, but except, of course, for one, Chris Johnson. We all know that, and Titans fans, unfortunately, know that. Hasselbeck should definitely be left on waivers. I don't even see him as a number 2 option. Obviously, Tennessee is more of a throwing team, but next week, this Thursday, short week, you're looking at the Steelers. The Steelers might not have Troy Polamalu, but they still have a strong secondary. They still have a strong defense. James Harrison is probably going to get to him for at least a couple sacks, I'm sure. So you can't trust Matt Hasselbeck as a starter in Tennessee. I just don't see it happening. I think once Jake Locker returns to the lineup in Tennessee, then yeah, I think you can plug in Locker as maybe a number 2 guy, and then his receivers definitely go up in value. But for now, I really can't trust any of the Tennessee guys going forward, not with Hasselbeck under center. I just can't see it. Now, if they prove me wrong later and have another breakout game like they did against my Lions, then which was out of the blue, then okay. But until then, I just can't trust Matt Hasselbeck going forward. On to a running back that I cannot trust. And this one's tough for me because I own this guy in my league, and it's funny. I had him on the bench for several of the first few weeks of the season because I had better guys ahead of him. I had Peterson, I had Doug Martin ahead of him, I had Andre Brown in for a week. I had guys that were putting up buku points, and yet he was still doing well on the bench, 12 points, 13 points, being a big part of the offense. And then this week with Martin on a bye, I finally had to start him. Well, he let me down. Darren Sproles. I mean, where did you go? You did more like disappearing, Darren Sproles. You were completely, nearly invisible this week. 5 carries for 9 yards and only 5 catches for 28 yards. That's 2 points, folks. 2. Count them. 2. 2 fantasy points. I mean, just a complete and utter disappointment. I cannot figure out what his role is in this Saints offense anymore. He's closing in. If there was an award I had for hair puller of the year, he's closing in pretty close. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous why he could go from being buku outstanding the first few weeks to almost invisible this week. Just absolutely stunning. Sometimes he's in the passing game. Other times, he's the leading rusher. But against the Chargers, no Rad couldn't even find him. I mean, he was completely off the radar. Couldn't find him. Transponder turned off. You couldn't find Darren Sproles. So it was just tough to see that. But maybe it's because he was facing his former team. Maybe because they knew him so well. I don't know. If that's the reason, okay, I get that. But it is a little bit of a concern. So obviously this week the Saints are on a bye. So obviously you're benching Sproles this week if you own him. But I gotta say, I do have my concerns starting him in Week 7 against Tampa this week or this coming week. It is a worry. So really, until I see more consistency from him, he might be nothing more of a number 3. I'm really worried about this. What's his role going to be? What is, is Thomas going to keep stealing carries from him? Are they going to get Ingram more involved? What are the Saints going to do? You'd think he'd get more involved in the passing game. If Graham is out for a while, you'd think he'd be more involved, but you never know. So just kind of take a wait-and-see approach to that. Obviously, you're benching him this week because of the bye, but maybe against Tampa, maybe you temper expectations a little bit. Definitely a worry with Darren Sproles going forward. On to the wide receiver to avoid. Boy, what has happened to the Carolina Panthers and one Steve Smith? This is the shocking stat of the year. This is an all-time head-scratcher. This is supposed to be Cam Newton's #1 target in Carolina. And at least from what I've heard, I don't know if this is fully true or not, but at least from what I've heard, he does not have a single touchdown this season. That is an absolute stunner. And we've heard the story. Steve Smith's gone off on Cam Newton for his demeanor and his behavior. Hey, I would be mad too if that was the case over the point where I didn't have a touchdown for my quarterback who's supposed to be good, and I'm supposed to be the #1 guy. I'd be mad too. I can understand where Steve Smith is coming from. And others guys like Brandon LaFell and Greg Olsen are having big weeks, and you can't even get the ball to your #1 guy. So again, bye week though this week, so obviously you're benching Smith if you have him because of the bye week. But for the Dallas matchup after that, maybe Smith, nothing more than #2. I mean, he's, until this Carolina offense gets itself figured out and really finds an identity and can find a way to get better, but the big question is, can I really afford to bench Steve Smith? Do I really have better options? And maybe you don't. And if you don't have better options, and obviously you're going to roll with him, but honestly, I can't see him right now as more of a #2 because of the problems in that Carolina offense. The running game is a mess. The injuries have hurt there, and it's a disaster anyway. And the receivers, you don't know what they're going to do on a week-by-week basis. As Cam Newton struggles, those guys struggle too. So really, it's just for me a situation you want to avoid at this point. It's definitely not fully worth looking into. So again, he only had 4 catches for 40 yards this week. That's 4 points. Big disappointment. I'd avoid it personally, but if you have no better options, nothing more than #2 for the Dallas matchup for Week 7. But obviously bench him this week because of the bye. Tight end. And boy, this is a tough one for me because I hate to put guys back on a bad list when they've been on a good list a few weeks ago. So let's see. Let's remind ourselves the story. 2 weeks ago, a certain quarterback named Ben Roethlisberger said, "I'm going to make Heath Miller a Pro Bowler." Well, predictably, Heath Miller went off in that game, and I had him on the guys I like list. Well, apparently the bye week was not good for Heath Miller because he gave us a real letdown this week. Granted, Philly secondary is tough with Asamoah and I think Rogers Cromartie is there, and so it's definitely tough. 4 catches for 41 yards, only 4 fantasy points. So it really does kind of make you wonder a bit about Big Ben's words because, do you really now take him to heart at this point? If you're going to be a Pro Bowler, you can't really afford to have these letdown performances. But the thing of it is, considering this juicy matchup this week against the Titans, and it is a juicy matchup, the Titans defense hadn't exactly stopped anybody. You can't really ignore Miller this week. I think he's going to get his share of throws. He is, Mike Wallace is, Antonio Brown is, all these Steelers weapons are going to get their share of throws against this Titans defense, which is just going to get carved up like a knife through butter. You can't ignore Miller this week. I wouldn't panic too much on him. I think he's going to be a sneaky number 2 start. If your number 1 is on a bye this week or injured, if you're still out with guys like Hernandez, if you're a Hernandez owner, and you have Miller on your bench, I think he's definitely a sneaky start for you as a number 2 option. I think he's going to get his share. Might even sneak in a red zone touchdown for you or 2 against this Titans team, which has just been pathetic on defense this year. So I actually really like Heath Miller this week, but is he going to be reliable going forward? Is he going to be this Pro Bowler type guy? I'm not so sure about that just yet, but you never know. So temper expectations going forward, but I definitely like Miller this week as a sneaky number 2 play if your number 1 isn't panning out for you or on a bye week. All right, guys, and one more wild card for you, and it is also at the tight end position, and this one's kind of a concern because of an injury, and that's Martellus Bennett of the Giants. He only had 3 catches for 30 yards this week, but he did suffer what looked to be a pretty scary hyperextension of his knee. He was getting it evaluated early this week. I have not heard the reports on that just yet, so you're going to have to monitor that situation really carefully. You hope that's not a concern because Bennett, I mentioned him early in the year, is one of my breakout guys this season at tight end, and he's been a decent threat for Eli this season. But definitely monitor the situation, see if anything comes back on that. If Bennett is out, you're probably going to be scrambling for a backup plan because there's not a lot of big-name tight ends left out there on the wire. Maybe there's guys like Jared Cook or a Joel Dreesen or maybe even a Dennis Pitta that's still out there for you. Or even Kyle Rudolph, who I mentioned in my 5 Guys to Ride video. So, if he's out, you got to find a backup, or if you have a better option, start your next guy. But if you're not confident in him, find a guy off the wire for you if Bennett is out this week. The Giants face the 49ers this week. It's obviously a tough matchup with the defense. I think the Giants are going to have to throw a lot in the game because obviously the 49ers' run D is very, very strong. If Bennett plays, maybe more of a number 2 option because of the fact that he's got this tough defense around him, but only if he plays. So definitely monitor the situation this week. All right, guys, those are the 5 guys to kind of avoid this week, kind of letdowns and their outlooks going forward. Thank you guys again so much for all the support. If you have any questions or comments or anything, please feel free to leave them here on the videos or on my channel. I will try to answer as many as possible. I have been quite busy of late with both my work jobs. I got 2 jobs now, so I'm going to try every single week to get on here and do these for you guys. But I appreciate your support. I appreciate any comments that you guys leave. Like I said, I'm only trying to make myself and you guys better, and I want you guys to do well in your fantasy football seasons. Whether you're sitting at 5-0 or 0-5 or anywhere in between, I want to be there for you guys every single week. So good luck in week 6. Also, feel free to don't forget to check out the Facebook page. Stay tuned for the link to my notes as well on other players. And again, good luck this week, and thank you guys so much again for your patience and understanding. Good luck this week and in week 6, and see you next week, same time, same YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.